We'll just go straight into the agenda. Sorry. Right. So we do decisions and actions from the previous meeting. So we'll start with that first, please. I don't think there are any anything particular that's outstanding. Is that right?
No, just chasing the slide. Just a note from the action that states about the PSPO. I actually need to speak to Mark Brooks, so I'll reassign that and chase that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any comments on that? No. So apologies for absence. I've only had, even though despite there not being many people here, I've only had 2 apologies of absence from Councillor Patterson and Councillor Sadie Hobson. Are there any other apologies that people are aware of? No. Oh, and Lara as well, so Councillor Pringle as well. So she did send me. I get them in different ways, so I was trying to trawl through my messages. So they're the only ones I'm aware of. Okay. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? We've only got 2 reports, so I'd be surprised if we did. No public participation that we're aware of. No matters referred. So just straight into the agenda then. The Neighbourhood Services Performance Report. Over to you, Stefania.
Thank you, Chair. So hopefully you have noticed a very good trend on the indicators again for this quarter. The recycling rates keep on a good, it's a good trend in terms of increasing compared to preceding years, and similarly residual waste as well. So we're definitely on the right trends for those indicators. And again, we are improving on the missed bins as well. And collections, the graph is giving you an indication of the difference as well in relation to year by year, and this quarter was the lowest figure achieved by the service, which means clearly we are putting a lot of effort in improving that part of the service. Similarly, the percentage of fly tipping collected within the 7 days still quite high in terms of the percentage, around 98 or 97%, and also the graffiti removal as well. So overall, I think the performance indicators are telling us a good story in relation to how our services are performing. With regards to updates on key projects, as well as to note that the green waste, the paid subscription has gone really well. We didn't have any complaints in relation to the implementation, even if we changed a few things, which was good. A lot of planning went into it. And at the moment, the subscriptions rate is slightly higher compared to previous years, but it's difficult to tell because the people last year subscribed in August, and maybe we captured some of the August subscription a bit earlier. So until September, it's probably difficult to tell whether we're having more people subscribing or not, but it's definitely a good trend. We've awarded the horticultural contracts, so now we've got good contractors on board in making sure that we do have also a way to monitor better our programme in terms of interventions on trees, which is again helps in reporting. We had continuous meetings with the Environment Agency about the Riverdale Restoration Project. The latest conversations that we had is that we're still on track with the works planned for late July, beginning of August. However, we are continuously in discussions with them to make sure that the comms also to the public is right. We are now being judged for Green Flag Awards, and soon we're going to have in July we're going to have the results. We've got an additional entries this year, which is Cambridge Park, which is, in my view, well deserved, and I really hope that we're going to be acknowledged about the value of that park for the community. And this year as well, we have entered a new award, which is Anglian in Bloom, for 3 sites to celebrate the great gardening and horticultural standards that we have in the Water Gardens, Tring Memorial Gardens and Cambridge Park. So hopefully we'll be recognised on that as well. The capital programmes are progressing again well. The playground refurbishment program, you've got the details of that program in here in terms of which playgrounds are going to be looked at first and which schemes are being awarded to date. We are also progressing well on a verge hardening policy, and the full update will be then at the next meeting for this scrutiny meeting, so that you will see what the policy is about in details. And we are now at a stage where we have a draft and which we need to finalise with SLT, and then we can come here to then discuss the details on that. We also positive news as well on SANG delivery. We've appointed the SANG delivery officer as well, a very good appointment. I'm sure you'll all meet him at some point. And we are then focused on our works in commencing deliveries of the key sites, which is Bunkers Parks and also working on Chipperfield Commons and other sites. We had some work on the splash pads that opened recently, and we're really well attended already, despite, I mean, weather hasn't been great, but as soon as the weather is a little bit better, it's really well attended. And finally, for some news in terms of regulatory services, we've got a contaminated land strategy that is being reviewed, benchmarked to the local authority, because the legislation has changed slightly, so we needed to update that strategy in terms of our statutory obligations, which we did. And then also we are updating the Equality Action Plan, which is also scheduled as part of the forward plan to be then tabled here at this committee, so that you can see that in details later on this year.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I have one question, but I'll open it up to the floor first. So, Councillor Mitchell, then Councillor Deacon.
I'm just wondering, and we've talked already about the accessibility to the play parks, if there's any update on what's happening with that, because I appreciate it wasn't in the initial funding that was obtained for the park.
In terms of getting to the actual, yes, so we will, once we've done delivery of this phase one, we'll work up another SIL bid, really focusing around access to playgrounds in terms of actually getting to the playground once we've delivered the current phase of programmes, because there's a couple of sites I've been to where we've got a lovely playground, but it's difficult getting to it. So.
Yeah. Just one last, can I just get confirmation that I know that Warner's End or the Gaybridge Play Park had to go out for tender again, and it's due back at the end of June, I believe, from the report.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that it will definitely happen this year?
There are all the schemes. I think we brought one forward from the phase two, which is due to happen starting September. But yeah, those that have been re-tendered, providing we get a successful tender, will be for delivery after the school holidays.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, my question is in regards to SANG. Have we had any issues, or was it just part of a long process in allocating the SANGs, especially to Bunkers Park, or are we on track for that?
Yeah, so in terms of, I've got an update on SANG later, so we might kind of go into a bit more detail.
Okay.
But yeah, in answer, there's no massive kind of big issues to escalate. It is a long process, so you're pretty much kind of quite correct, and it will have an element of ward member engagement as we go through the next phase of SANG.
Fine, thank you. And just a side comment, I went to Cambridge Park recently, and I think, access is very important, but I think the facilities there look amazing. There's the splash park, and there's loads of kids' playgrounds. So I was very impressed.
Okay, we don't have any other questions. Just, do we have an update on when the gate I can't speak.
Realignment?
Yes, the gate project. When will that start?
I'm still awaiting a final date. I've had 2 meetings this week with the Environment Agency, and I now have a weekly catch up with them.
Okay.
So they will do some what they are calling enabling works in the next couple of weeks, but that's really a person with hand tools, to be honest with you, around just discharging some of the planning conditions, and they are looking to start hopefully in mid-July.
Great.
Albeit we know that's busiest time of year in the park, so we need to work with them closely to manage that potential risk and disruption.
I think given the interest, if it's possible to put an all-member email around when they start, just to say the fences have gone up, and then I'll stop you having questions about what's happening. That'll be good, that'll be helpful. Any other comments on this report? Questions? No? Brilliant. Thanks for that update. Very, very positive overall. Lots of hard work behind it, so thank you very much. Right, next report, please. And final report this evening.
Thank you. So in terms of the planning performance, I'll just take you through a couple of highlights. You can see at paragraph 1.3, we've achieved 86% in terms of planning applications decided against a target of 70%. And you can see then that we have our minors and others separated out at table 1.5, so you can see how that's kind of been made up over the last quarter. Apologies for the typo, it's still updated, showing quarter 2, it should be quarter 4, so apologies for that typo. Our major planning application performance has been at 100% over the last quarter, which is positive. Just to let you know that all of these are including any planning performance agreements or extensions of time which agree with the applicant about extending the time periods. We are aware that Horizon Scanning, the government, has just held consultations where they suggest that they're going to move away from these extensions of time. We're not sure whether it will definitely happen. Obviously, we're in quite a political kind of unstable time at the moment. But paragraph 1.6, you can see that internally we are starting to phase this in. So we're going to stop using extensions of time on household or planning applications. So it'll be interesting to see what it has on any impact of statistics, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that and the reason why. In terms of enforcement, you can see at paragraph 1.7 again that we show 72% against 100% target. We are up from 32% on the previous quarter, so that's really positive in the fact that the temporary members of staff that we've had in the service is now kind of showing in terms of the amount, the speed that we're getting through the site visits and also the overall kind of enforcement workload. We've got one member of staff left around April time, and we've got another kind of temporary member of staff who's with us until July. And then that will be the end of that kind of funding that we've got. The team are taking a report to senior leadership team on Friday about thinking where we are now in terms of the enforcement overall queue of work, and then where we get to maintain it as a sustainable position. Because we've had an injection of money to get through that backlog using enforcement temporary member of staff, and knowing then that it's kind of looking at that overall kind of caseload going forward. So positive news, and we're predicting that we would be up at around 90% by the next kind of quarter kind of going forward. So it's a prediction at the moment based on kind of work that we've got coming forward. So in terms of moving on to SANG, we've got an update here on SANG matters that will include quarterly, and you kind of see it in duplicate reports. But that shows that it is a real kind of corporate priority, and it's not something that just sits with planning. It does sit with Clean, Safe and Green, it sits with finance, it sits with legal, it sits, as quite a broad kind of corporate priority. So a couple of updates. Boxmoor Trust, we have a meeting in June with their lawyers and with our lawyers to really finalise their position about having a legal agreement which will enable them to secure suitable alternative natural green space with private developers, which is really important for us because it allows a private developer to kind of go to them for a SANG position and takes the pressure off a Dacorum Borough Council SANG position. It's also linked to a Rectory Farm appeal, so there's a bit of text in there in paragraph 1.18. So Rectory Farm, the planning inspector granted permission and again looked at that to say, well, actually they could be in the catchment area of Boxmoor Trust SANG. They could also look at a Dacorum Borough Council SANG, and therefore we now have that appeal that kind of, we need to really focus on that Boxmoor Trust positioning. Also, as a result of that appeal, we have looked at our mitigation strategy. And in order to remove any kind of legitimate expectation of any future house builders to seek Dacorum Borough Council SANG, we are looking at updating our SANG mitigation strategy, so how we allocate our SANG to different developers. So we've put an alert on our website saying that we're working on that SANG strategy, and to make clear that we haven't got a unendless capacity, so we are kind of raising that kind of early warning system. And we are looking then at that SANG strategy to really just clarify that position, that it's potentially, we need to refine this, but it's really kind of focusing on those sites that can't provide their own SANG. So those smaller sites, council-owned sites, etc., kind of going forward. So in terms of the next phase of SANG delivery, which is kind of to your point earlier, paragraph 1.13 shows that officers are still working onto these kind of next rounds of SANG. We are looking at Margaret Lloyd Park may well come forward as kind of one of the first areas with an agreed management plan, and that's linked to a planning application as well, which we know as LA1, locally allocated one site with the Homes England. So we will continue to kind of update you on that, but at the moment there's no key milestones that we've gone through, so we've not got any agreed kind of management plans as yet. And in terms of the list of planning applications, you can see there at 1.17, I am aware of a couple of more that may be around the corner, one in particular, which we're at pre-application advice. So the pre-application is private and confidential, so as soon as that comes in as a planning application, you know, there will be one more that I'm expecting. Not expecting many more above that. There's no others that have been promoted to us from the local plan kind of point of view. So that kind of position, but obviously we will update quarterly as that kind of changes and progresses. That is my update, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So questions on the planning report?
Yes.
Well, forgive me. I've got any question on the planning report. It's just as a parish councillor and sitting on the planning committee there, when the applications come through, you do notice sometimes the standard of the application, the standard of drawings really are extremely poor to make a decision. And I think the council perhaps might be missing a trick in respect that you're accepting these applications, you're referencing them, starting the clock ticking on something which isn't good enough to make a decision. Then to me, it looks like it should probably be sent back to the applicant saying, fine, but can we have some plans with the north and south end perhaps, and dimensions and plan that shows where windows might be, not just a box, because that is not good enough for yourselves to accept. And then you load up your workload on something that you can't progress. Now, if you're going back and then holding the applicant's hand to do it, well, I'm afraid they should just go and pay some money and get somebody to do it for them. Because it's so easy to download something from here and think, oh, that's good enough, I'll send it off and they'll fill it in for me. But if you're absolutely up to your ears in work, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be kicking it back and saying, go and get it done properly, we'll review it when we've got a proper application. Because I think some of the stuff that comes with meeting in Boddington simply isn't fit for purpose to actually sit down and make a decision on. And I think you're just missing a trick. I think you're loading up work that you didn't even take and hand it back and say, we'll look at it when it's done properly. It's like my homework at school, actually, you quite frequently hand it back saying, Phil, you've got to go, but go and do it properly now, not on the back of the bus. That's half an hour doing it properly.
I think it'd be really helpful to know a couple of planning application examples, because I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think in terms of validating a planning application or not, it needs to be a perfect set of planning application drawings. So I'd be surprised where we're validating an application that they're that poor to that quality. So I think if I can have a couple of cases, yeah, absolutely, then we can look into it.
I mean, they will come through.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll send them back to you and say,
Thank
look,
you.
you know, grey mark is one. I mean, it's the drawings are impossible.
Lovely. I'll take that away. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
I don't know if it's appropriate just to ask about the most recent appeal that's been received, because it's quite significant development land southwest of Leighton Buzzard Road.
Yes, you're right. We've got a notice of an appeal. It's quite likely to be a public inquiry. It's quite likely that with the planning inspector, they do tend to allocate public inquiries fairly quickly. So we would expect that within 3 months or 4 months. It's a greenbelt reason for refusal as a kind of primary reason for refusal. We've seen quite a few appeal decisions go against us on that. So it will be a evidence piece around our housing land supply and what the housing land supply is, and then the impact of the proposal on the greenbelt and any very special circumstances they put forward. And then the inspector will go through the housing land supply, the very special circumstances, and decide what weight to give to those and to make a decision. So we will defend the council decision on that. We obviously can refuse that decision, we'll defend it. That's all I can really say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's an interesting one. Councillor Anderson, sorry.
Chair, sorry, quick corollary to that. I think it's important to note with that particular application, there was no provision for SANG whatsoever. And that's one case where I think actually the same argument could be a lot more powerful than it has been hitherto. On another point, Chair, I've been there before in terms of quality of applications, and also the other frustration one faces is when an application is amended, applicants are very poor at showing you what's changed. And that's another complaint that parish colleagues and I have when we look at plans regularly. The advice in the past has always been that we're not entitled to refuse to validate applications just because they're not good enough quality.
Ridiculous.
Which it kind of leads on to this argument that when parish councillors particularly are complaining that a plan is inaccurate, you have to advise people that just because the plan is inaccurate, that isn't a reason for objecting or refusing permission. You have to demonstrate what's actually proposed. The reasons as to what actually is proposed is a reason for objecting or refusing permission. And there's been plenty of occasions over the years when I've got frustrated with applications being validated. At the end of the day, we've just not been in a position not to validate them. So that's an issue we've come across before. The question I wanted to ask, Chair, is with respect to the land supply. Again, this is a little bit off-piste, I'm afraid, but it is relevant to planning. I've noticed on the weekly bulletin that we've actually started receiving applications involving details pertaining to LA3. Does that, can I ask, does that mean that we've actually broken the land assembly deadlock and that we are actually in a position where the LA3 is coming forward and that can actually have quite a boost on our land supply figure?
Can we just remind, is LA3 Children?
Yeah.
Yes, West Ham Hempstead.
Thank you.
West Ham Hempstead.
Yeah.
1,100 houses.
I'm happy to answer this question, but I think we just need to be careful that this is a recorded meeting and, you know, I'm just very conscious that this is kind of taken forward. But with LA3, it's a granted planning permission. It's within its 3 years of implementation date. It's once it's got a full discharge of all of its conditions and a suitable alternative natural green space solution, it's ready to go and it has a full planning permission which it can implement. It won't be part of our land supply because it's already banked in terms of our local plan previously. It will add to our land supply in terms of those previous ones, not towards our new local plan. So it will help towards our land supply, but our land supply position will need to be recalculated as and when that comes forward. In terms of real delivery on site, I think we just need to be mindful as well that if a planning application is implemented, and I think the date of that expiry is around December or around the end of the calendar year at some point, it will then need to have the enabling works, the construction works, and then housing delivery might be 18 months away or 24 months away, etc. So in terms of housing land supply, I can't comment in terms of what impact that may or may not have and when that may or may not kind of trigger through.
James.
Could I just add a couple of points to what Sarah's saying there? On the land assembly side, of course, that is a matter for the developers to do that. That's not the council's job. We need to be mindful of it. You know, we know from work we've done many years ago on planning for that site that the land was in separate ownerships and the developers had to put that coalition, if you like, of landowners together to be able to deliver it, really. So I don't think we know the answer to your question about whether the developer has resolved that problem, which is theirs. It's maybe encouraging that if they're making those applications to discharge conditions, they've also, I think, Sarah would like to confirm or not, that they've had to tackle with the SANG question as well, because SANG wasn't a thing when we took this through committee a few years ago as well. And I think just on this point about delivery, I think how it then counts into our supply will depend on how quickly the developer is able to get on with the site and what rate of delivery they choose to exercise, really, because then the numbers which do figure, as Sarah's absolutely right, feature in our analysis of the supply coming forward, but when they move away from being a planning application on a piece of paper, if you like, to actually homes built on the ground, and we say they're actually completions rather than committed. It's about completed development against committed development. So, and we are very much, of course, then in the hands of the developers about how quickly they progress that.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions to that? I think we're all interested to know when that might happen. It's an area I walk past regularly.
Certainly a very important part of our supply.
Strategically and, yeah.
Chair, as Councillor Anderson's quite rightly saying. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. If there are no, you've got a question?
Yeah, I'll be very quick.
Yep.
I'm told I'll allow one stupid question per meeting. So I noticed that you were reviewing a SAN charge. Are you able to control planning application charges, or is that set by government?
No, that's set by government. So they've recently increased it by about 10% in December, and now it will increase year on year, linked into various other kind of increases. So it will be kind of an increasing fee going through, but it's nationally set. It's not locally set.
No, fine. So we can't increase it to juggle worth a try. Thank you.
There has been consultations from government on that approach, but nothing formal has been determined. So whether it comes through in the future in the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, we can obviously update kind of coming forward. The consultations were looking at local authorities being able to fix their own planning application fees based on good performance. So it was a carrot and stick approach. So it has been thought of across the country, and it's just been able to understand how to be able to kind of look at that, but nothing formal has come out, and I'm not expecting it to anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I've just got a comment. I think this is on the enforcement site visits. That increase is brilliant to see, because we've been talking about this for a long time, and we were very supportive. The committee was very supportive of this extra resource that you got, and I think that's the change quarter on quarter, having been a bit concerned last quarter because we hadn't quite seen that come through. I think is excellent, and the next challenge is understanding how to maintain that trajectory whilst your resources is coming to that current resource. And I understand you said that there's a report going to SLT, but just to remind, I mean, the committee's very well remind everybody that that's an area that was very of great interest to the committee. And I think I can speak on behalf of the committee from what we've heard before, that we're very supportive of trying helping you build the case for maintaining that high performance, because that's important. So I don't know if there's anything more that we can do, but certainly when those reports are ready to come to the committee, we'll be very interested in them. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on enforcement, but I know that it's important. Okay. Great, thank you. Oh, yes. Councillor Reddick.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to follow up on what Phil was saying about planning applications and the quality of the application. I know which one he's referring to because it's in both our areas. Now, I've followed this particular applicant for a number of years, and he's, a serial vexatious planning applicant. I've never seen such appalling drawings in all my life. A child could do better than they could. They look just like Etch-a-Sketch sort of thing. No detail, no information on them. I'm amazed they get to the point where they're even being considered. They should be sent back. Perhaps, I'm a bit concerned about the calibre of the people who are doing the validations. Do they know what they're looking at? Do they not realise what professional quality information is?
So I think one thing to understand here then is, I think you mentioned, Sarah, about what are the restrictions that we have when we're reviewing these things, because is it a material reason to send an application back if the drawings aren't up to scratch, and then where's that line drawn?
Yeah, it is. And it's, your point earlier in terms of your previous feedback, there's a point in the milestone of validating the planning application, whether it should be validated or not. And then there's that point that if they are valid, but they're not, the best kind of specification, but they've got through that positioning, then no, you can't refuse a planning application because they're not good enough to that point. I think with this one, I think it's a particular case, and I think I'll take it away and have a look at it. You mentioned Greymantle. I've looked it up already. And I know that Philip Stanley hosts a monthly parish and town council drop-in session. Yeah. I think these are really, really helpful examples to bring back to us. We deal with 3,000, over 3,000 planning applications per year. I don't want to say we get it right 100% of the time. I don't want to say that we have 100% great calibre of applicants, because actually that is a genuine point. Some agents are different levels.
Particular applicant, he submitted no less than 25 applications on this one site. He's had 12 refusals, he's had appeals, and he's had 12 appeals dismissed. He just keeps going on and on and on. What he's looking for is, we know what he wants, but he can't have it because it wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't conform to any planning condition. We're wasting our time going round and round and round in circles with people like that.
Well, I mean, that sounds that we've got at least two things. That the drop-in seems a really good one, but also I would recommend, if you haven't already, to get in contact with Sarah and Philip to talk about this, and I'm sure they'd be happy to have a proper sit down.
With respect, I've spoken with planners for years over this one particular applicant, and he has been advised by some of our planning officers to actually engage a proper professional team. There's not been a proper survey done on that site. There's no dimensions. You cannot, I tell you, I've not seen anything so appalling in my 60 years as an architect and surveyor.
No,
It's disgraceful.
It does.
It wastes a lot of our time.
It does sound very worrying. And just as far as what the committee could do at a strategic level.
But this particular applicant has got another application which is coming up on DOC next week.
It must be very frustrating.
Just to finalise it, the problem I have with it is, the parish, I look at the drawings, and we can't make a decision.
No.
We can't see what he wants.
So my question is, how did it get to us when it's going to be decorum who are making the decision? If we can't do it, I mean, and this particular building is 10 minutes walk from Memorial Hall, we're at the meeting, you know. And if we can't work it out, then you guys have got a chance.
I definitely think that when that's coming in, if you're not able to, I would get in contact with Philip Stanley immediately and say, we're not able to make a decision on this, but this raises some concerns, but I would have a conversation with the planning team. I think at the moment, if it was in the council's gift to change the rules or procedure around that, then that's something that this committee can look at and advise and ask officers to go away and come up with a proposal. But it sounds like their hands are tied because the national rules don't really allow you to turn things down.
No, I don't. I mean, I've sent applications to other
Have I
councils.
sorry, let's the officers come in then. Have I misunderstood that? Do we have a
The
line
point
that we can
is,
draw?
it's a particular case, so I think I need to go out and I need to investigate, you know, the quality of the drawings. You've cited it as an example, you know, it's got a really, really long history. We've dealt with complaints on this site, you know, from all different varieties. In terms of the national legislation, you need to have a minimum set of drawings to be able to validate a planning application. So that's that point, that once you've met that, there is obviously then a variety of quality within that. I take that point that once you've met that bar, and the question is whether this was, you know, acceptable or not. It's now a valid application and it is number 20.
It's in the system now. That's the trouble. It's in the system.
So on this particular case, officers going to put some extra time into looking at this and working with you on it. I think in general, if we found that there were a pattern or an insufficient number of bad drawings across many, then that's something we need to look at. But at the moment, I'm getting a sense that it's not a widespread problem, but this is a very deep, serious problem.
I mean, we do get some very good quality applications and proper professional drawings which we can understand.
Yeah.
This one particular person,
My perspective from this strategic committee is just, whereas, what can the committee add to this? And Sarah has very kindly said she's going to go away and look at this particular case. So it's getting that balance between specific cases. It definitely needs looking at, but is it a matter for this committee and the strategic stuff that we generally look at? I'm not dismissing your concerns at all. Yes.
Thank you. Just an observation that in the land registry, if one is going for a boundary determination, there are minimum scales, for example. You have to submit a plan. And there are actually quite specific guidelines as to what that plan should look like.
But they don't appear to be in the general planning, so.
There may
Work to your MP.
not be, but it might be.
Get it from there.
It
from the land registry, it soon comes back.
Yeah.
There's no possibility of publishing guidelines for a specific council. It has to be uniform throughout the country.
but the reason we're raising this is because I forget what the fee is. He only pays something like £200 a time to put these in, but it costs us thousands of pounds of officers' time each time.
I absolutely understand that. I think your point has been well made. It's been received by the officers. They're going to look into it. As a strategic planning scrutiny committee, there is limited stuff that we can do, but you've made your case very well, and the officers are going to look at it. So thank you. And it is interesting for us to note. Any other questions on the planning report? Yes,
I
Councillor.
don't have one on the planning report, but I did have one for Stefania. It's just a
Okay, well, let's just check there's no more questions on the planning report. No, we move to AOB, so Councillor Mitchell.
Well, thank you. Stefania, it's about the fly tipping. I'm really impressed with how that's being dealt with, because when it's reported, they very quickly come out and they're putting these big banners over it, or they're putting notices on the wall, which are very obvious.
Sorry, can we not have separate conversations when other people are talking, please? Thank you.
And that the banners and the posters on the wall are sending out a very strong and clear message. But in fact, I even had one put on a door, and then whoever fly tipped that door, I think, came and quickly took the door away because it had the enforcement poster on it. So I think they're dealing with it really well, and they're putting the posters up quickly, and they're coming to collect it quite quickly. But my concern is what we're doing to stop repeat offenders, because I am getting repeat offenders for, absolutely certainly in my ward on, quite significantly. There's a lot of fly tipping going on in Cambridge, and I don't see that change. So I see, good results in terms of how we initially deal with it, but I'm not seeing a significant change in terms of the repeat offenders.
I see what you mean. I mean, it's a really difficult balance, that one, because we're obviously trying to use all the tools available to us in relation to stop these issues. And one of the tools is about fines. In fact, we do have, and you're absolutely right, we are on it. And we are one of the best in Hertfordshire, actually, in terms of fines and in terms of number of fines and prosecutions. We are the highest in Hertfordshire in terms of that. So we're obviously trying to get that as part of the stick approach. We also do some educations in relation to trying to encourage households to make sure that they deal with companies or businesses that have the right certificates and they know where the fly tipping goes. And I think that's also a very another angle that we're using. Whether we want to perhaps reinforce that as a kind of an awareness campaign to kind of discourage people, because we're talking about the same culprits who obviously haven't got any license, and they're obviously being caught, but they are, in terms of business, so they're probably absorbing that as part of, even if the fines are quite sizable, to be honest. So they are quite sizable. They are defined, the fines are defined by the courts and not ourselves, unfortunately. So that's another element that unfortunately is beyond our powers to be stricter on that, for example. That is something that we can't control. We can certainly control the prosecution, which obviously we are already on top of it, because we are the best in Hertfordshire in terms of prosecution. And we can continue to perhaps strengthen the campaign of information in relation to make sure that people understand who they deal with when they clear their houses, and that's the kind of tools available to us in dealing with the issues. But if you let me know the exact location and the exact, perhaps I can also inquire with the team, is there anything else we can do to deal with this particular case, I suppose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think as in all of these cases, if you have particular ward issues, don't wait for the committee as well, always, as you do, talk to officers. Brilliant. Any other business? Councillor Deacon.
Because we've just passed our first anniversary year, and we are the best scrutiny committee in the whole of England, we've been treated to a site visit for the recycling area and the CCT area, because it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour last time. I've got a date of the 17th of July, and I'll put an invite by email out. But I've been asked whether it's morning or afternoon it's going to be best, so I just want to wait for this and just to get a consensus. So I don't expect you know what you're doing on the 17th of July.
What day of the week is it?
Wednesday. So I definitely can't go.
Just be mindful, it's full council play evening as well.
Is it full
I
council that
can't, I
evening as
can't go
well?
to full council either, because I'm.
It's full.
I can't make between 1 and 3, so morning or late afternoon.
I mean, if no one can make it, I could go back.
We go back for another date. We go back for another date.
Should we go back for another date?
Yeah.
Shall we avoid?
I think it's a rubbish day.
Rubbish day, okay. I will recycle that comment to another meeting.
Maybe we can look around September when diaries are a little
That would be
bit.
better, I think, after
Clearer. And is there a preference in terms of mornings or afternoons that people have on?
Smell of recycling.
I think you just need to choose a date, not everyone's going to be able to go,
Okay.
choose a date, choose a time, and we'll leave it at that.
Fine, I'll be
That's what-
assertive,
that's what
okay,
we do. And
but maybe not a different date to the full
A different
council date.
date.
Yeah. Okay, thank
Look
you.
out for that email.
And if there's